Now, can you start all over because we didn't have the recording on?
Yeah, I got it. The burial of Jesus. When it was already evening, since it was the day of preparation, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a distinguished member of the council, who was himself awaiting the kingdom of God, came and courageously went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate was amazed that he was already dead. He summoned the centurion and asked him if Jesus had already died. And when he learned of it from the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph. Having bought a linen cloth, he took him down, wrapped him in the linen cloth, and laid him in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance to the tomb. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph, watched where he was laid.
Okay, thank you, Esther.
You're welcome.
Now, as what comes out at you all when you read that? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, for me, and now that I know who Joseph is, but Joseph of Arimathea always intrigued me a little bit because he had money, he was part of the council and all those kinds of things. So, and understanding that now that even though there were a lot of these wealthy men or men of, I guess, distinction, who were part of the council, but who were also believers in Jesus. So I think that jumps out at me that, you know, even though they were part of this organization, they still believed in Jesus. But the other thing that hit me was Pilate being amazed that Jesus was already dead. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. But those are the first two things that jumped out at me.
Okay, that was interesting. Anyone else? Loretta, Garnetta, any thoughts?
I was thinking about how Joseph of Arimathea said it was the eve. It was the eve before the Sabbath. And was Joseph concerned with giving Jesus the proper Jewish burial?
Okay.
So that's why he wanted to, he went to Pilate to ask for the body because he was a believer and a follower, and he wanted to follow the Jewish custom.
Okay.
Also, if they waited too long, it would have been the Sabbath, I believe. And then they would not have been able to remove his body at all.
Right. Exactly.
Work on the Sabbath.
Okay.
Thing that jumped out at me was thinking about the Marys that were at the tomb. So you had Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Mary of Jacob.
Well, down. Are you talking about this one, or are you talking about the other verses? This says we just had Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary of Joseph.
Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of Joseph.
Yeah.
Where he was laid.
Yes.
So so Joseph is, wait a minute. Is Joseph and James the younger brother of Joseph?
I have no idea. I really don't have any idea. I don't know whether they were, one of Jesus's other brothers, or that some people say he had other brothers. I don't know who that is. Mary, the mother of Joseph.
Yeah,
and Mary's a common name, so everybody seemed to name their daughters Mary. back
Yeah,
then.
it's a whole lot of marrieds.
Right. So
Yeah, but
and they-
I did read somewhere, maybe it was in Matthew and I didn't write it down, but I did read somewhere that the mother of Joseph is also the mother of Salome and the younger James.
okay. All right.
So
Okay.
I did read that somewhere, but one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that Joseph had the audacity to go to Pilate and ask for his body, because he was a wealthy man, you know, he could do that. But I don't know, someone as evil as him, I would be afraid to go and ask him for anything. But he had the audacity to do that.
So are you talking about that that Pilate was the evil man, right?
Yes, right. And I'm saying that someone, you know, Joseph went and asked him for Jesus's body. I thought that took a lot of nerve.
Mhm. I
He was
agree.
brave. He was showing his bravery there.
Mhm.
Because
So-
yeah, something could have happened to him.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
because he was such an evil man, you know,
Mhm.
I just thought that was a very brave thing for him to do. And you know, he may not have shown his strong faith before, but then after Jesus passed, I think he really believed that's who he was, the Son of God, and he wanted to treat him with respect.
okay. So as we get back to the beginning, we have a lot of good thoughts that was out there. So 42 starts with when it was already evening, since it was the day of preparation, the day before the Sabbath. So the day of preparation, what does that mean? What does that mean? The day of preparation. So what does that mean? That's seems to me very significant. So what time?
Does it mean preparing for the
It's
Sabbath?
the preparation for the
For the
Sabbath.
Sabbath, yeah.
Right,
Because
right.
you have to get all your foods and everything together before
Right.
sundown, because on the Sabbath, you're not allowed to
Do
do any
anything.
kinds of work.
Right.
So before sundown, all that had to be, you know, done.
Mhm.
Right.
Place. Mhm.
Yeah,
And
'cause-
we did that when we were young children. Our mother and grandparents didn't do anything on Sunday. It was a holy day and all meals
Right.
were prepared on Saturday.
Right.
Wow.
and
Exactly.
even now, you know, Jewish people, you know, for Shabbat on Friday. So everything, you're right, everything
Yeah.
has to be done before. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it's very important to know that if you rested on Saturday. So what made that on the Sabbath made that so important is that remember when Jesus was doing his ministry, what was one of the things that people were upset about Jesus?
Because he was healing on the
Yep.
Sabbath.
The Sabbath.
Mhm.
Yes.
They felt that was against the rule because I guess it was a form of work.
Yeah, that was a sacrilege. And we discussed that earlier, early in this chapter of Mark, where he did some healing on the Sabbath. And the council people were very upset that he did that. He didn't stay adhere to the law. But here they're telling us that they're doing that. And like who was that? Garnetta, Loretta, one of you said that on here, people used to not cook on Saturday, and we were kind of following the Jewish law. You know,
Mhm.
in the Bible, that we weren't doing anything on a Sunday, and most of the things that we did on a Sunday was what we went to church.
We went to church and we
Yeah.
spent time with family. Of course, we ate together.
Yes, and we kind of did that too. I remember on Sundays we went to church, and then we went to grandmother's, and everybody, all the family members and children were at grandmother's house for dinner on Sunday. And yes, and everybody sat around, talked, fellowship, you know, on a Sunday afternoon.
Remember remember the blue laws? You couldn't go shopping
Yes,
and
Right.
yes.
all that, you know?
Yeah, everything
Now
basically
we're doing
closed
everything every
down.
day. It's like the
Yeah.
same every day.
It closed,
Yeah,
everything
that's
closed
why
down.
I appreciate Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
Yeah.
They weren't open on
Yeah,
Sunday.
they closed on Sundays.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that was nice.
Because you know, now that we treat Sunday like it's a Monday or a Wednesday, you know, and it doesn't, it's lost some of its reverence, because
Yes.
people, I mean, and some people, you know, they're working on Sunday. Young people can't participate in church like we used to, being that when I first I started leading the youth group, you know, back in the late 80s and early 90s. We had more kids, and it was very important that kids, you know, were a part of the church activities. And as we went into the late 90s and early 2000s, a lot of the kids couldn't come to the youth group or anything because they were busy with work, or they had sports that happened on Sundays, sports activities that happened on Sundays that took precedence over you know, youth group or church activities. So
Right.
as we look at it today, our group has dwindled even smaller, you know, because, you know, even though they don't don't have those activities, they're allowed to stay home and sleep, you know, on Sunday, and not participate in any you know, church activities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think that's really sad.
Money, choice, and conveniences. That's the way society has gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Money
Exactly.
drives pretty much everything. Big business.
Yes.
I
And
agree
it's
with
sad
that.
because that's a big part of our problem. You know, with just everything that's happening in the world. We don't take a day to sit and reminisce and reflect and, you
No.
know, to try to get ready for the
So
next
now,
day.
as
Every
we
day is
move
the
on to 43, y'all made some good points by Joseph of Arimathea. Now, Joseph of Arimathea, it says a distinguished member of the council. Now, we have to put some emphasis on that. He was a distinguished member of the council, who himself, awaiting a kingdom of God, came and courageously went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Now, even though, you see, that gave him clout right there, that he was the using his what I want to say, his
Position.
His status.
Influence.
his position,
Yeah.
and that Pilate was aware of, that he could come and have the courage. Sure, he might have been afraid to come, as somebody said, to the evil Pilate, but he summed up the courage, and it says here, courageously. He courageously went to Pilate. So he had to sum up some courage to go.
Right.
So, but what else strikes me as coming out of this, that being a member of the Sanhedrin, the member of the council, and you know, the majority of them didn't believe in Jesus. But
Right.
it seems like Joseph of Arimathea kind of did, and was sort of a follower, don't you think? And respect.
You know, there's a difference between the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin.
Right.
One of them believed in the coming of Christ, and the other one didn't. Because if you go back up, I don't think it was verse 41, where it says he was right here. He was awaiting the kingdom of God. 43, right there. He was awaiting the kingdom of God. So he was a believer in an afterlife, or in you know, the Messiah coming.
Right, exactly.
But the other group, the Pharisees, there's the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Sanhedrin.
I think
one of them doesn't believe that.
I think the Sanhedrin didn't believe that. I think the Pharisees did. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think he was a member of the Pharisees, which which were the people that was in power, the people that ran the synagogue was the Pharisees, and the Sanhedrin. I think they were the kind of like the opposing, the opposing group that they believed in God, but they believed in sort of like the action. They want something to happen. They wanted something to happen. So
Okay.
I think Joseph of Arimathea. Help me out, somebody. Somebody's dog is having a problem. So Joseph
Sorry, that was my dog.
Oh, okay, Michael. So I think that he was the Pharisees, and he but sometimes you're part of a group and you don't want to say anything. But for him to step out courageously and go to Pilate next to the body, that means that he's also was kind of like defying what happened with his group, didn't agree
That's
with his
the way
group.
I saw it.
Go ahead, Mike.
That's the way I looked at it. That verse jumped out to me. That's what I was thinking, that the courage, because he was a distinguished member, it was like going against the council.
Right.
So he did step out, against whatever they were trying to do or what their thinking was about Jesus, and went to Pilate and did it anyway, arranged for his burial and everything. But that's what stuck out to me.
Right.
I have a note here that says, although an honored member.
Wait a minute. We got a lot of people talking. Let me mute some people because I can't hear you. I'm muting some people, so I can't hear you right now. So once we get that, we can get started. Okay, there we go. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Okay, I have a little note here that says, although an honored member of the Jewish Supreme Court, Joseph was a secret disciple of Jesus.
Yeah.
It also says, not all religious leaders hated Jesus. Joseph risked his reputation as a religious leader to give a proper burial to the one he followed.
Yes, exactly what Michael was saying. Yes. He was, he didn't want it. It's sort of like we have now. Think of this now. We got people who are secretly against Donald Trump, but don't speak out loudly. You understand?
They don't have courage.
Right. So they are, if they say anything, they are saying it to, a close family member or something like that, but they are afraid to come out and really, they don't like what he's doing. And they want to support some of the things that maybe President Biden is doing, but they're afraid. So they're afraid of their party, but they're also afraid of Trump, the repercussions that Donald Trump may put on them as they see. And as you see it now, that some of them are defying the Congress and won't testify, and two of them now are willing to go to jail for Trump. Who are probably going to, put them under the bus anyway. But you see how they, yes. So this is important that he is secretly a member, that he was a really, to me, I feel like earlier, if he was a fault, why couldn't he say something to stop this thing from happening? He was afraid. And somehow, even though he was afraid, it's already done. And he was sitting at the fact, he said, I'll let this happen. There's some people say that, I'll let this happen, but now let me step up and see what I can do from there on. So here he's saying, now let me summon the courage to see if I can give this holy man a burial. This Jewish holy man, because Jesus was Jewish holy man, a proper burial. So anybody agree with that or disagree? What I'm saying about that?
Well, it says he himself was awaiting the kingdom of God as well. So
Right.
that would kind of.
I was reading that Joseph of Arimathea was Mary's uncle and Jesus's great uncle.
Oh.
Oh, I've never read that. I never knew that.
Yeah, and so I was thinking that sometimes when it's your family member, when it's your loved one, that can also summon the courage in you to do something, to make a change.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
So Joseph of Arimathea, he was both, it sounds like he was in the Sanhedrin as well as a follower of Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah, relative.
I want to say he was a Pharisee.
He
And a
was a
follower.
he was a part of the sect of the Pharisees, but I remember reading somewhere that he was also part of this. He was also in the Sanhedrin.
The Sanhedrin is a governing body,
Yes.
you know, and the Pharisees are more of a religious body.
Right.
Right.
So he could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
He
I
was like
think
the Supreme Court.
and I think they composed the Sanhedrin, right? The Pharisees and the Sadducees composed the Sanhedrin.
Yeah,
They were
Right.
combined.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of think that they were. Yeah, maybe we depend that because I kind of thought that they were two different sects, and they were kind of like on the opposite ends of things, sort of like the Democrats and the Republicans.
Are you
And they
thinking of
came
the
together.
Sadducees and the Pharisees?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they are different.
But
They are
but
different.
they are different, but they composed the Sanhedrin.
Right.
It's like the Democrats and the Republicans are different, but they compose our House
Congress.
of Representatives and our Congress, right?
Okay,
So yeah, they were different, but they composed that.
but they came together against Jesus. So the common
Some of them did. Some of them did.
Some of them did.
Not all of the Sanhedrin members came against Jesus.
Right.
Exactly.
And Joseph of
as
Joseph of Arimathea was one of those ones who did not come out against him. I can't hear anything.
Did you are you muted or
No, I didn't hear anything Esther said.
oh, I don't know. Is it just Esther that you didn't hear anything? Do you
Yes.
hear me? Can you hear
But
me
I'm
clearly?
yeah, I can hear you clearly, and I'm not on mute. But I didn't hear what Esther said.
Okay. Esther, do you want to repeat what you
Yeah,
said?
I was just saying that the Pharisees and the Sadducees were different groups, but they composed the Sanhedrin Council. And
Mhm.
somebody else, I forget who just said it, that all of the members of the Sanhedrin did not come out against Jesus. Joseph was one of them.
Yeah, Joseph.
But that was what the council was composed of. I was saying it was like Republicans and Democrats. They're two different, groups, but they compose Congress.
Right.
Okay.
I was reading
So-
that some, and that's a little confusing for me because I was reading that some say it was made up of the Sadducees, some say it was made up of the Pharisees, and some say it was a mixture of the two groups.
It
So
was
we
a
need to. So maybe
What is
we can
made
put a
up of?
pin in it.
We will put a
Yeah.
pin.
It sounds like something we need to put a pin in.
Mhm.
Yep, that's a good one. Okay. So I wrote it down. So we can discuss that at the beginning next week. Okay. All right. And moving on to 44. So this is important. But Pilate was amazed that he was already dead. And he summoned the centurion and asked him if Jesus had already died. So what do you think about that? Why was he amazed that he was already dead?
Yeah, that's the one that hit me, and I think it it took, when people were crucified like that, it took them a long time to die. Yeah, and it was excruciating because most of those people, because of they were stretched on those beams, those cross, they died from asphyxiation. because they couldn't breathe, because they couldn't get
Right.
breath. So it took a long time for them to die. So I think that's why Pilate was just so amazed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I do think that's what it was. And what made Jesus just go so soon? You know, it's like, what made him go so soon? We can discuss that. I mean, why would somebody else hold on and Jesus just died so quickly? Think about that.
It wasn't quick to me.
It was finished.
Right. He gave up his spirit.
That's
Right?
it.
Yeah.
That's it. That is it. That is definitely it. He decided to let go, where most of us are still holding on. So if the others are still holding on, still afraid to let go, still afraid to die, even though they are in that excruciating pain and suffering, they are still holding on, where Jesus just gave up and said, you know, not gave up, but gave his soul over to God, where some of us just keep holding on. And you know, if you ever been around people who died, you know, I've been around some of my relatives who have passed, and some of them do hold on and call out, but then others just take a deep breath and go.
Yeah.
You
Well, that
know,
was the purpose that he came. He came to die. So why would he try to hold on and say, I commend my spirit unto you? It says, Father, this, not to be, let this cup pass from me. But, he knew he came to die. So he wasn't
there
going
we
to
go.
fight against the death.
But you know what? And it's so funny. I got, and this for me was a new, maybe understanding, awakening about hope. You know, there's a scripture that talks about Christians. We're not like those who do not have hope, because we know and understand about God and salvation and all. And it's more of a psychological thing, I'm thinking, because Jesus knew that God was real, God existed, he was going to be eternally with the Father. I don't have to hold on to this. I have hope. I'm going to my Father. But
Right.
people who do not have hope, it's like they can't give this life up, because they don't know that there's something better to go to. And Dee, you're right, because I've been with people who have died. And in some cases, it was like once they knew that everything, and I remember when my older sister passed, once she knew that everything was going to be okay with her daughter, Kim was young then, and her husband, and that we were all good, she left.
Yes.
Like she knew everything was going to be fine, and she left.
Right.
And it's like people who I think are not unsure,
Yes.
who don't have that hope, are hanging on.
Yes.
Yeah. But
When,
that was just another whole new thing that just hit me when we started talking about this.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
So
a
I thank you
beautiful,
all.
yeah, that's absolute. I know when my sister and I witnessed our sister-in-law passing away, we had 1 day's notice that she was going to pass away. We got there and she was in good spirits. We know why she was in good spirits. Maybe some other family members didn't understand that, but we surely understood why she was in good spirits, and she was ready.
Right.
She was on her deathbed, still cracking jokes. I mean, she was ready.
Was.
Yes.
She really was. And so this, in Esther, I agree with you 100%. When you have that hope that you're going on to a better place, because that's what you feel. That's what I hear that you feel, that you're going on to a better place, then you're okay.
Right.
You let go.
Okay. Yes. You let go. So that's the difference here. Jesus is let go, where others hold on. So that's what made Pilate amazed. because I guess sometime when you're amazed, it's like you don't understand why. Why did that happen? Sometimes when we are amazed, there's a wonderment there. So there was a wonderment on Pilate's part that he didn't understand, really why he was already gone when he, didn't last as long as someone else. And he had a reputation of being this guy, and he probably thought that he would last longer.
Right.
Okay, that was good. And when he learned of it from the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph now has the body. When he learned of it from centurion, said he gave the body. Who gave the body to Joseph?
The centurion.
No, Pilate
Pilate
gave the body to Joseph.
Right. I just want to make sure that was clear. When Pilate, it said he. When Pilate learned of it from the centurion, Pilate gave the body to Joseph. So they didn't put Pilate's name in it. They just said he, because it's extension from verse 44. So that when it's strange how they put the Bible in all this verses, but anyway, that's the way they did it. Okay.
I'd like to go back to something, if I may.
Yep.
And that is verse 37.
37.
Did
Let's
we,
go back to
did
37.
we ever discuss that? The 38. I'm sorry, 38. The veil of the sanctuary was torn in two from top to bottom.
I can't remember a discussion that we had particularly about it.
Well, to me, that's very significant.
It is.
Which one?
We never talked about it.
I'm sorry.
Verse
38.
38.
Oh, okay. Oh, the veil of the sanctuary. No, Father Rich went over there very quickly and said it was a curtain that was hanging down.
Right.
Yeah, it's between the Holy of Holies.
The Holy, yeah.
Right. And the the other outer court or something like that. But it tore by itself. So that's why I say God was in control of all of this. So but the veil being torn, I have been taught, now I don't know if Father Rich teaches this, that it was to show people, or to show everyone, that you didn't have to have a priest to come to the Holy of Holies for you. With Jesus' death, we are now able to come ourselves. There's no curtain between us and God.
And there's no medium. Yes, there's no mediator.
That's how I was taught.
God, yes, exactly. I was taught that too. So when the veil of sanctuary was torn, that meant that the people could come right to Jesus, right to him.
Right.
And they didn't need the Pharisees or the Sanhedrin or anybody to give the high priest to give an offering to them anymore, because that's what they did. And the veil separated that. So that's a good point. That's a very good point, Gretchen.
Yeah, and remembering that it did contain the Ark of the Covenant, which was a holy.
Can I share a note on that?
I'm sorry, Michael.
Can I share a note from
yes,
the notes in my Bible on that? Talking about the veil of the sanctuary. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it says probably the torn veil. Well, let me go back. It says there were two veils in the Mosaic Tabernacle, on the model of which the temple was constructed. The outer one before the entrance of the holy place, and the inner one before the Holy of Holies. Only the high priest could pass through the latter, and that only on the Day of Atonement. Probably the torn veil of the Gospels is the inner one. The meaning of the scene may be that now, because of Jesus' death, all people have access to the presence of God, or that the temple, its holiest part standing exposed, is now profaned and will soon be destroyed.
Okay. So it's kind of like saying what we already had said.
Right, just confirming that.
Yes, that the people down there, we have access to God ourselves. and, you know, and Jesus Christ without going through a high priest.
Right.
Very good, very good. Anything else on that topic that before we move on? Any other thoughts? You know, I just want to make it clear, you know how Mark is. He, you know, when we reading this thing about Mark, if you know, he just to the point, you know, he doesn't give us any details, and we either gotta understand Mark or know what he's you know, referring to. So Mark is talking to an audience that already knows what happened. And he's just giving, you know, just sometimes when, you know, when you talk to people who already know, you're just giving them a summary of what happened. So he's not giving us every little detail that we might need.
Right.
He's just giving, you know, just to the point. But sometimes we got to stop and look at it, just like Gretchen did, made us stop and go back. Let's talk about this veil. Because a lot of things happened when Jesus died. A lot of things, you know, happened. You know, what happened? The veil split. They had it got dark. The ground shook. I mean, it was like an earthquake that was happening. It was a scary time, you know.
Yeah.
It was like what did the centurion said? He must be truly on 39. He said, you know, when the centurion who started facing him saw he breathed his last, he said, truly, this man was the Son of God. What made him think that? What made him think that? I don't see anything here that made him think that. He didn't. How did he know the veil was torn in half? Because he was at the site of the crucifixion when the veil was in the temple, and I'm sure they weren't next door to each other. So how did he know that this man was the Son of God?
Because the Spirit descended on them.
Say that again, Garnetta.
I was saying the Spirit of God descended on them.
Okay. Because I was thinking the same thing. I said maybe that was a revelation for him.
Yes.
Because Dee, I'm like you, and I don't know why I didn't think to go back and ask that, but I thought the same thing. What made him realize that this was truly the Son of God? I mean, they were all there. All this stuff was happening. So what was it about him or why? And like you said, Garnetta, then I thought, well, maybe that was God's revelation to him so that he would carry that information forward. You know how we evangelize and he can say, well, I was there and I know that was the Son of God, you know, whatever. I don't know, but I did. I thought the same thing. Everything, what happened? Why would he be the one to say, you know, this is the Son of God?
I was going to say that in Hebrews chapter 9, when you get a chance, you might want to read Hebrews 9, because Paul explains a lot of that about the Holy of Holies and the veil and stuff. So, when, you know, at your leisure, you might, if you're interested.
You're reading my mind.
What?
I was just about to say the same thing.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah. I'll start reading some of it, and it really gives a full explanation of the Holy of Holies and, you know, the tent, they called it. You read my mind, girl.
No, I'm reading the same Bible you reading with the references.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So now we're on 46. Having brought a linen cloth, he took him down, wrapped him in the linen cloth, and laid him in a tomb that had been hewn out of the rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. So, anything that catches your eye in that one?
Yeah. I mean, I wondered because the women usually prepared the body with spices and stuff, but it seems as though Joseph he knew, because that's what they used. They used linen to wrap the bodies. But then I was wondering, well, what happened with the preparation of the body?
I don't think they had time.
Well, from what I understand, I think some of the other gospels say that was done temporarily. They were going to come back after the Sabbath, to
And
do
right,
all of the
that's
other
right.
things to the body.
right, okay, yeah. Because I
And
know
they came
I've
back
read
and he
it.
wasn't there.
Right, right.
Yeah, because I know I've read it somewhere.
Hallelujah.
Like,
Hallelujah, I say.
yeah, yeah.
I missed that. I missed that. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you gotta pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention. Yeah. The women didn't have time to prepare the body with the spices and stuff. That's what we were talking about, you know, because they wrapped the body in linen. And Gretchen was saying, because I know I've read it, and she said they didn't have time when they came back to do it. They didn't have time. And Jonetta went, hallelujah.
Because he was gone. He was
Because he was gone.
Yeah, yeah,
It's risen.
Okay,
yep,
not
what
really.
it was.
It was already evening,
And-
remember? It was
and-
already late, and they really didn't have the time to
That's what-
do
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
They really didn't have the time to do it because it was late. And
Because
they
of the
were trying to get him into that tomb before the Sabbath.
Right.
So that just did not happen. And
Right.
so you think in 47 with Mary Magdalene, the mother of Joseph, watch where he was laid. What was the purpose of that? Of them doing that?
I'm sure
So
so
they
they
can
could
come back and-
right.
Yeah.
They
Do what
come
was
back.
really good.
They know where he was, so they can come back and cleanse his body with spices or whatever they traditionally do.
Right. And because they didn't have any markings either. You remember where it says they
Oh,
laid him
yeah.
that was hewn out of the rock. So there's no marking. It could have been anywhere they could have laid him in any of those rocks, tombs. But the other thing was everybody wasn't this is very important. I don't think everybody is laid in a tomb. It's sort of like most of them weren't laid in a tomb. I think if you had money like Joseph of Arimathea, you had a tomb.
Mhm.
It's but like some people have a mausoleum, or something because they have more money. But I don't think the average man or the average woman that they crucified was put in this a tomb. Like they probably was thrown in a mass grave or sort of.
Right. Remember
Yeah,
that
there had to be a whole lot of honing, whatever they call it, hewing, to build that out of a rock. I mean, that was
Right.
a lot of work to do that. Somebody, I'm sure,
Right.
was paid to do that.
So
Right.
instead of being buried underground, they were buried into this cave-like thing. And whereas most people are thrown in the ground and dirt poured over them. So
Right.
some,
Isn't it the pauper's grave? Isn't that what they called it?
Yeah.
yeah,
They
Yes.
supposed to stay in there for a year until their bones are skeletons, and then they put in a little box or something.
Hmm.
I don't know. Is that true?
Yes, she's right.
Okay.
Yep.
My Jewish expert Pat is not on here yet right now. She knows all that.
Because you remember that verse where Jesus
My
said, "Let the
husband
dead bury the
passed.
dead."
Yes.
That
When
was
my husband passed 2 years ago, all my children were there. They washed his body, and they went through a whole procedure of wrapping his body in white. It was just so beautiful.
Wow.
It was just a beautiful experience. So they washed his body in his all white linen, and that's the way we had him to. That's how we had him moved to the funeral home.
That sounds beautiful.
us.
It was a beautiful experience.
Okay, so now we do have a little bit of time. Let's move on to the next chapter. We're going to start with the resurrection of Jesus, and we might have enough time to get through this before 12:30, maybe not. The longer ending. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, anybody want to start reading the resurrection of Jesus?
Okay, I can read it. The resurrection of Jesus. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go on and anoint him. Very early when the sun had risen, on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb. They were saying to one another, "Who will roll back the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled back, and it was very large. On entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a white robe, and they were utterly amazed. He said to them, "Do not be amazed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, the crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go and tell his disciples and Peter, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him as he told you." Then they went out and fled from the tomb, seized with trembling and bewilderment. They said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid.
Ooh.
Can you imagine?
I tremble just reading
Yeah,
that.
me too.
Right.
My
Okay.
goodness.
So what are we saying?
My question is, who was in the tomb? Who told them that?
A young man, it says.
I
thought it might
know,
be an angel.
I guess I want to know who that was. I mean, was it a man or was it an angel? Was it?
I think it was an angel.
I do too.
Yeah.
Because how would that person know where Jesus would be? Of course, I mean, I really don't understand that. Who was that?
My note says it was an angel.
Okay.
I'm reading from the Catholic Study Bible, if you can see that.
Okay.
It says an angel.
Like the angel that appeared to Mary when she was pregnant with him.
Right.
It says the women find the tomb empty, and an angel stationed there announces to them what has happened.
Okay, some of
Well,
the
thank you.
will say angel, and some of the texts will say a young man. So it depends on the translation, I think, again, and who was writing the text. Because I think the other gospels have a young man, and one of the gospels, I think, I'm not sure, he had a hat, a farmer. He looked like a farmer or something working. So I think it's just the different translations of what's going on. So let us go over, starting at the beginning. It says number one, when the Sabbath was over. So now it's Sunday because their Sabbath Saturday. So it's the next day and everything is over. And now they can go to the tomb, which they couldn't go before because it was late. Remember? Y'all talked about the spices and had that laugh that I missed about the spices. And so now they're going to anoint the body. It's very important for them to anoint the body. Why is that so important? It has a little thing right here that the anointment, it must be, it's very important that they anoint the body. And why is that? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Why is that so important?
It was part of the Jewish ritual.
Okay. Anybody's note say anything about that?
Mine says it was a sign of love.
Oh,
and
really?
devotion and respect.
Okay. Isn't it isn't it about purifying the body to make sure the body is purified before it goes on to God or something like that?
Yes.
I'm just saying it at the top of my head. I think I read that somewhere. about the purification of the body. And a lot of religions do that. It's just not just Jewish religions. A lot of religions do the purification of the body before they don't just give it to the undertaker and say, okay, get them ready. They kind of like do a purification, and we do that too. Sort of like when Father comes around with the incense, we're kind of doing a purification of the body, before we send the body off for burial. If you notice that, that's kind of that's kind of what's going on. They're doing a purification of the body when he does the incense, and he goes and he walks all the way around the body, the casket. You notice that? He'll walk all the way around the casket, and that's sort of a purification that's that we're doing, to the anointing, and basically we're anointed with oil when we have our last rites, and when we call them, and so we are anointed with the oil too. That's one of the sacraments that that we have, to be anointed with the oil. And hopefully a lot of times when we know a loved one is at death or whatever, we will call the pastor or the priest to make sure that they have their last rites, if we know that they can do, he can do that. Now I'm not sure whether they do the oil after, if he gets there and the body's already gone. That's something that I have to ask Father Rich, because I don't remember having that done. I remember calling him for the family members, and they were still alive just about before they went, and he did the anointing. But I don't remember having it afterwards. Anybody else?
I don't know either.
Okay, so we do still have the ritual of the anointing. So that's exactly what was happening with Jesus. And what does B say down here? That means we go to Matthew 28. What does that say? Oops, that's Mark. Go back. That was just Mark. What does B say? Where am I? Oh, Matthew 28. Oh, wait a minute. That's not where I was before the guard.
That's 28.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's 28. Go down to
Magdalene. And this one says, after the Sabbath, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary came to the tomb. That was important. They didn't. Matthew didn't talk about the. But, and then they talk about, there's an angel of the Lord descended from heaven, approached, rolled back the stone, and set up on it. So here, where Michael was talking about the angel, his appearance was like lightning, and his clothes was white as snow, and the gods were shaken with fear. And he's kind of said, the angel said to the women and replied, "Do not be afraid. I know that you are seeking Jesus the crucified. He is not here." So this is the one that's Matthew was telling us about who Jesus is. I mean, it's not the little boy that was sitting there. It's not a man that was sitting there. It's talking about, you go back to the previous chapter. That's not where I want to go. Okay.
Luke says there are two men.
Yes.
Oh,
You already remember reading that? Two men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes.
Yep. This is Luke 23:56. Okay, this is telling me they rested on the Sabbath according to the commandment. This is Luke. Okay, we have to go to the next chapter on this one. Two men in dazzling garments appeared to them. That's what Luke says. Two men. So I don't know. It depends on who's writing or what.
Well, you know what? They all say the same thing in the end. He was risen. So that's all right with me.
That's that.
They all say the same thing in the end. You're right. They all say the same. But
and this is what we talk about when, you know, we get tied up into the details, but it's the essential truth
Yes.
that we're looking for.
Yes.
Right.
And like you said, Gretchen, it ends in the same essential truth.
Right.
So it makes Gretchen has a point. So it makes Mark not so bad after all. It makes that Mark said, okay, you don't need all that stuff. You just this is the most important thing that you need to know. This is what you need to know, and all that other stuff is just junk. You really don't know the other part.
I want to add one more thing, then I'm gonna be quiet. I do a Bible study on Wednesdays with the Presbyterians, and right now we were doing Mark, and the pastor was saying how Mark was just rushing everything along. He was boom, 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 and that's all you get out of Mark. Mark just gives you, like Esther said, the essentials. So I said, but she used a phrase that was kind of making fun of Mark. And I said, oh, I'm gonna take that back to my Bible study. But now I'm sorry, I forgot what it was. I'll tell y'all next week. She said, tell your group the presby's told you that. So,
right. Oh, Gretchen, you're gonna have to find out what she said.
Yeah, I'll go back next week and find out.
Okay.
On very early, when the sun had risen the first day of the week, they came to the tomb. So that was the first day, on the first day of the week. So the first day of the week to them would have been what? Sunday, right? Would have been a Sunday.
Right.
We believe the resurrection happened on a Sunday. So very early when the sun had risen, we believe that it was a Sunday that this had happened. Okay. So, and here we go. They were saying to one another, who rolled back the stone for us? Who will roll back the stone for us into the entrance of the tomb? And that's a good question. There, you know, when they left the tomb, when they was watching where they laid him,
Right.
it was a big rock there, right?
Right.
So that's a sort of like a legitimate question to ask, you know. So we're going over here to, it's something I would ask too. We're going over here to anoint the body, but who's gonna open the door? You know, it's the door is locked, and it, you know, and it's a heavy. So who's gonna do that? You know, so we're sitting there hoping that somebody will be there that help us to open his tomb. So I'm assuming that they're hoping right there that somebody's gonna open it for them. So when they looked up, they saw the stone had been rolled back, and it was very large. It's a big stone. So they looked up and they said, okay, that's done, but why? Wouldn't I ask the question? Well, why would it be rolled back? Why would it be open? Who else is in there? Wouldn't you ask that question? It's sort of like coming home and the door is open. And you don't remember leaving anybody there. So why would the door be open?
So
Is
you
that a
can
question?
see that he is risen.
Well, they can't see that yet. It doesn't say that yet. They only saw that the stone had been rolled back and it was very large, you know? So if you're approaching and you know that he was buried in there, who would roll the stone back? And my question would be, would somebody do something to the body? You know, would be my question right now. Because, you know, they're not thinking about the resurrection yet. You understand?
Right, I got you.
They heard it. They don't actually know if it existed yet. So, you know, they know the Romans had what? You know, the Romans had crucified. Maybe the Romans took the body for some reason or opened a stone to make sure he was still there. I don't know. There would be all kinds of questions that would be going through my head if I'm walking up there knowing that the stone was put there last night. It should have still been there. But we know that, I don't know whether any other disciples came to move the stone or whether the Romans moved the stone. So that would bother me the first thing before I saw anything else. Any questions on that? I mean, any thoughts? Wouldn't you have any thoughts about that? I'm just throwing that out there.
Oh, it makes sense to me.
Of course.
like you said, if you came home and the door was open, you'd be concerned, wondering what's going on, what happened inside.
Right, exactly. So I think they cautiously when entering the tomb in 5 said, they saw a young man sitting on the right side. So they entered the tomb, and the man must have been inside the tomb, sitting on the right side. Now he's clothed in a white robe, and they're utterly amazed. So what throws you off right here? What gives you thoughts? What thoughts? What happened here?
I want to go back to something previously. I think back in 15, and it said that Joseph wrapped his body, and it said he laid him in the tomb, and then it said he rolled the stone against the entrance. So if Joseph was the he that rolled the stone against the entrance, why would it need more than one person to roll it back?
It was, well, they were women, number one.
But they were women, yeah.
And having, that's what it
We
says.
look at 46.
It says he rolled a stone. So Pilate gave the body to Joseph, having it in the car. Joseph took the body, took him down, wrapped him in the linen cloth, laid him in the tomb that had been hewed out of rock. Then Joseph rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. They did not say he had help.
They didn't say he had help.
He was a strong man.
Did he? He was maybe. Then and then again,
I can see the women saying, who will roll back the stone for us? But if Joseph rolled it over to by himself, one or two women could possibly roll it back.
Well, maybe not.
And we don't know if, think about Mark. Mark leaves stuff out.
Yeah.
Somebody else could have helped them. Mark leaves stuff out, Okay, Joseph rolled the stone. This is a large stone. Now, here they keep saying it's a large stone. I'm thinking it's a large stone because it has to be a doorway.
Right.
So I don't know. That's a good question, Val. It's a good question. See, and it also makes us think about things, it seems out of normal, the norm. The one man did it, and you said maybe the two women could open it up. That makes sense because the two women, with the two of them, they could probably have opened it up, but that's not the case. It said here it was already open, and there is somebody that they never seen before sitting in a white robe, and they're sitting there with their mouth open, thinking, "What the heck? Who in the world? How is this possible? Who are you? And why are you here?"
Mm-hmm.
All that would be going through my head before I decide I should run. I'm kind of like sometimes putting myself in these places where these people would be.
But I would think that the person who was sitting in the tomb, the angel who was sitting in the tomb waiting, then he would be the person responsible, or maybe the person who was responsible for removing that rock. It said it was a very large rock.
Right.
So how did he get in there? So I don't know.
I have a reference here that
thought.
It says the angels did not roll away the stone so Jesus could get out, but so others could get in and see for themselves that Jesus had indeed risen from the dead, just as he said. And it says the angels, it's like plural.
Yeah, and that's what I believe.
Well, yeah, that one says that, but we just read was it Luke? We just read that angels rolled away the stone.
Right, but Jesus didn't need them to do it for him to get out.
Right.
He didn't.
But they needed to
get in. Right.
So we could get in and see that he was risen or gone.
Okay, so let us kind of like move through these last three because we are a little bit past our time here. Okay, so he said to them, do not be amazed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, the crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Behold the place they laid him.
Yeah.
So don't look at me, he's saying. You know, I'm telling you, Jesus is not here. He's been raised. Look over there. He's not there. Look at the
Yeah.
place where they laid him. He's missing. And, you know, they're saying he's been raised. And they looking over there and they said, that's confusing. What do you think? They are bewildered.
Of course.
Yeah, it's confusing, but in the end, to me, that death had no hold on Jesus. It just didn't have a hold on him. And in him, if you're in him, then life is eternal for you. They have, I don't know if anybody has seen it, but they have a replica of at the MLK cemetery of the stone being rolled away from the cave. Has anybody seen that?
Where is it?
It's at the MLK cemetery.
Martin Luther King Cemetery.
Oh,
No, I know.
Oh, King, it's that King Memorial.
Yeah, King Memorial Park.
oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, you
Has
talking about
anyone
here?
seen it?
No.
It's
No.
really beautiful. They made a huge replica of the actual, not the actual, but an assimilation of the cave and everything, the huge rock that was rolled away from the cave. It's really a beautiful thing to see if you get a chance.
That one. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Okay, no, I haven't seen that one. So let us move on for 7 and 8. But go and tell his disciples and Peter, he's going before you to Galilee. There you will see him as he told you. Then they went out, fled from the tomb, seized with trembling and bewilderment. They said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Ooh, as we wrap this up, they were afraid because Jesus wasn't there. That strange man was sitting there, or what he told them to say and what happened. Is that why they were afraid?
I would tend to think
They
that
could have been.
the
Go ahead,
question to me reading that is that if they were following Jesus throughout the ministry and he had been teaching and telling them that, to me, apparently it didn't sink in, because if they're saying they were amazed, why would you be amazed if you were following him? He had been teaching that the whole time. And then the humanness of them saying that, hey, wait a minute, we saw a real body here, a real man in Jesus in the flesh.
Right.
And now he's gone.
Right.
Could they be reflecting that, hey, wait a minute, he told us that, but you know how we think about ghosts and everything like that, right? The first thing we are is afraid. But my thing is, if you have been following him, were you not paying attention to the teachings that he was giving and the prediction of his death? So I think the humanness of them seeing that he's gone, well, how could a body disappear? And this person in here that we know that's not Jesus, and how did he get in there? I don't want to go on and on and on, but that's basically my point, that, you know, you've been following him, but how could you not, why were you amazed that he's not there?
Well,
I'm with Michael. Yeah, they were just totally confused and confounded and in disbelief. I mean, and like you said, Michael, it's the human condition, because I think that's what we do.
Yeah, and I also think that they could have been afraid of being summoned by Pilate to answer for that.
Okay, that's a good one. Gretchen, you was gonna say something?
I was going to say that Luke tells a different story. So read Luke. Luke says that they remembered what he had said.
All right.
So Mark is he's just cut dry. He don't give you no details. But
Yeah.
Luke, I think it's 24, verses 5 through, what is this? 12.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Luke tells us a different story that they did remember.
Yeah.
Here they're just bewildered, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. They might have remembered what he said, but it still could have,
Yeah, it was confounding.
They could have been still in shock and disbelief that this really, really, really happened, what he said. Because sometimes people tell you something that you never heard before, and you are bewildered by it. But when it really, really happens, you like, oh my God, it is really, really true. Because deep down, and you questioned it at first because you never heard it before. And then when you have conversation with other people, they would say, some people say it was nonsense he was talking, and that happened. But
yeah,
they went there and they saw this, and now all this came back to them, and they wasn't sure. And like Michael said, they believe in ghosts back then. It could have been that. I mean, it was a whole lot of things that probably went through their head. And they, like I said, they ran away because they were afraid of a lot of things. Somebody said of the Romans, that could have been a good possibility because there was a lot of talk about that. So it was a whole lot of talk about what happened. And right now, they might have remembered what he said, but they weren't sure, and they were afraid, and they ran. So we're going to leave it right there until next week, and we can pick it up. And
That's a lot.
I was gonna say, when you traumatize, you forget a whole lot of things.
Right. You don't always share things when you're traumatized either. You don't always share the things because you're not, a lot of times when we're afraid, we take it upon ourselves that something that we did and made it happen. So we don't usually tell people, what really made us afraid. So
yeah, because you don't want people to perceive that you're crazy.
Yes, you're crazy. Exactly. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.